Hello and welcome to Silverstone and the GT Cup Championship. Just a week on from the British Grand Prix, there's been a bit of a change in the weather, which means unpredictable conditions for our drivers. But that's not going to stop the great racing right here on the hallowed GP circuit. As you just saw, the cars have qualified and are heading to the grid now for race one, the sprint, where we can join Mark Werrell.
Thanks, Michelle. So let's have a look at the grid for the first race of the weekend. Graham Tilley and John Seal sit there on the front row of the grid, and it's an all-Ferrari second row with Lucky Kira and John Dillon. Jensen Lunn and Josh Jackson line up on row number 3 with Stephen Walton and Ben Claydon on row number 4. Callan Jenkins and Craig Wilkins line up on the 5th row of the grid. On to row number 6, that's where we see Jan Klingenberg alongside James Guess, with Andy Robury and Steve Burt on row number 7. Steve Ruston, the champion, and David Franklin on row 8, with Fraser Smart and Russell Lindsay on row number 9. And Steve Burt with Andrew Gord at the wheel of the Top Cats Marcos on row number 10. The 11th row of the grid is Emmanuel Vinca out at one of the wheel of the Smart Track Series Elite Jaguars alongside Alex Stevenson, and Neil Garnham is at the tail end of the field. So damp and tricky conditions here at Silverstone for the first of 4 races over the course of the weekend. A sprint and a pit stop race today. We will repeat that over the course of tomorrow. We're on board with John Dillon looking directly ahead at the front row of the grid. The 2 GT3 cars ahead of us, the Lamborghini, the green car, and to its left, Graham Tilley, who qualified on pole position in the Nissan Nismo GTR. Round 5 of the championship about to get underway here at Silverstone, and as the lights go out, the pack charge their way up towards Copse Corner. It's Graham Tilley that just turns in with his nose ahead in the lead of the race. John Seal in the Lamborghini settling into second position, but everybody is safely through the first corner as we ride on board with John Dillon trying to hunt down Lucky Kira's Ferrari that lies directly ahead. So through the sweeps at Maggots and Beckett's, the 2 GT3 cars out front, the 2 GTC spec Ferraris sitting there in second and third place. Here's the pink and light green Porsche in the hands of Ben Claydon for this race. Now that's a car that's leading the championship overall as John Dillon now tries to attack for third position. He's got Lucky Kira to his right. Has he got the momentum as they get to the top of the Hangers Straight? No, Lucky Kira's still braving it out on the inside line. The rest of the field all filing their way through. There's the championship leader once more coming into this weekend, Ben Claydon, who shares the car with Sam Randon. The lead is in towards the braking area for the Vale, and John Dillon has made it through. The blue Ferrari now ahead of the red one, so it's Nissan from Lamborghini, Ferrari from Ferrari, but the order has been reversed between the pair of them. Looks as though Steve Burke's Aston Martin's coming under a little bit of pressure there from the Ginetta that's sitting right behind him. That's the Stephen Walton Make It Happen Racing Ginetta G55 that's looking to apply the pressure as they sweep their way over the Grand Prix start line, past the wing and in towards the braking area for Village Corner. Graham Tilley under pressure from John Seal, who is not letting him get away as yet. It's great to see Graham back in the championship as well at the wheel of this Nissan that he acquired at the beginning of the 2019 season. John Seal is keeping him busy, and this is the third place car looking to try and hunt down the leading pair. There is the number 72 car of Chris Murphy attacking Andrew Gord's Top Cats Marcos. The leading 4 in towards the braking area for Brooklands. Nissan, Lamborghini, Ferrari, the top 4 equidistantly spread. And now that John Dillon is up into third position, that also gives him the lead of Group GTC at this stage. But the red Ferrari behind him is desperate to try and retake the lead of that group and move back to third overall if he can, that being Lucky Kira. Over the start-finish line, first 3.66 mile lap has been completed by Graham Tilley. The 2 Ferraris still absolutely together, both running at 488 challenge specification. That's why they run in Group GTC. The GT3 cars that have a little bit more aero in the lead and in second place in this race in the hands of John Seal, just starting to gap the Ferraris now. The fight's down through the order, still continuing as well as they feed their way over the start-finish line. Onto the Hanger Straight comes our race leader, Graham Tilley with a bit more daylight between himself and John Seal. John Seal now has gapped the two Ferraris, but John Dillon is still under pressure from Lucky Kira, who is looking to try and see if he can get himself right back up onto terms. Through the sweeping right-hander at Stowe Corner. Then from there, the circuit just descends downhill very slightly in towards the Vale. Downhill braking area, easy to outbrake yourself as you go into the very tight left-hander that's immediately followed by the right-hander, and from there you're accelerating your way pretty much flat out in these cars through Club Corner, which on the Grand Prix circuit for Formula 1 would be the final corner, but of course for this configuration it's only halfway around the lap. Through the kink at Abbey, and again then through the flat-out farm curve as we go on board with John Dillon. Heavy braking area in towards the right-hander at Village. The two Team Hard Ginettas getting together there as well. There goes James Guess at the wheel of his Group GTH Ginetta, and he is ahead of the number one car, which is the McLaren that claimed the championship last year. Callum Jenkins trying to fend away the aspirations of Josh Jackson. Both of those cars running in Group GTA at this stage, and well, that will be for the Group GTA lead as well. Straight have gone the race leaders. The rest of the pack are about to feed their way into sight. Here comes the Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis, and then the two Group GTA Ginettas absolutely together still. Josh Jackson trying to find a way through and past Callum Jenkins. Can't as yet quite make it stick. So there they go, up towards Luffield now. Number 34, Callum Jenkins, desperate to try and keep Josh Jackson behind. Both of them Ginetta G55s, both of them in Group GTA, both fighting for the lead of that particular group, but at the moment it's just the white car of Callum Jenkins, who shares this car with Harry Yardley Rose, the 16-year-old, over the course of this weekend. Be great to see how Harry gets on when he gets the opportunity to get behind the wheel in the sprint race, maybe tomorrow. He'll certainly be behind the wheel come the pit stop race later on today. Through Maggots, up towards Beckett's. Still the white Ginetta from the black Ginetta. As for the Ferraris, it's still just John Dillon from Lucky Kira. Lucky Kira is as close as he's been yet, so is he going to be able to retake third place? Might he be able to reassert himself back into the overall podium spots? Graham Tilley, in the meantime, in the lead of the race at the wheel of his Nissan Nismo GTR, still just keeping John Seal at bay as the Ginettas are still at it. Through the right-hander they will flick their way, and then from there out of Stowe Corner it's down and in towards the Vale. And is this the opportunity that Joshua Jackson has been waiting for? He's too far away still from Callum Jenkins coming in towards the braking area for the Vale, so it's still just the number 34 of Callum Jenkins ahead of the sister car and teammate car Josh Jackson that sits directly behind. Out of Club Corner, past the wing building and the Grand Prix pits, up towards the very fast right-hand kink at Abbey, followed by the flat-out left-hand kink at Farm Curve. And at the moment, Callum Jenkins is doing just enough to keep the aspirations of Josh Jackson at bay. The pair of them in towards the heavy braking area for Village Corner. Remember, their teammates, the one thing they won't want to do is have problems with each other. But now the door is open, and taking no second opportunity, Josh Jackson straight up the inside of Callum Jenkins, takes the place away, but more importantly, that now puts him into the lead of Group GTA. As for the lead of Group GTC, well, it's still just John Dillon from Lucky Kira. The two Ferraris have been pretty inseparable at this stage. Lucky Kira is driving as hard as he possibly can as they head over the start-finish line, complete another lap, and up towards the very fast right-hander at Copse. John Dillon from then the red Ferrari in the hands of Lucky Kira, both of them using all of the curbs but no more. And in Group GTA, it looked as though Josh Jackson had taken the lead of the group, but all of a sudden Callum Jenkins at the wheel of the number 34 Ginetta is back ahead of his teammate. Great stuff as they fight for the lead of the group, and Josh Jackson isn't done with it there. He's now looking to draw himself alongside on the rub towards Copse. I think he's back through, is he? Callum Jenkins braves it out around the outside there, side by side through turn number one, and Callum Jenkins, by the skin of his teeth, still hangs on to the lead of Group GTA. Great racing as ever in the GT Cup. Through Maggots, through Beckett's, Josh Jackson sitting in the Pirelli wheel tracks of the teammate car that lies ahead. Is there another opportunity for him to try and steal the place away? There goes the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin of Chris Murphy, a former champion in this category. The two Ferraris still battling away, and problems, I'm afraid, for the car that was leading the race, Graham Tilley. All of a sudden, the Nissan Nismo slows out on circuit, so that now puts the two Ferraris up into second and third position, still with John Dillon just managing to keep the aspirations of Lucky Kira at bay. Up towards the braking area for Village Corner, then on towards the very tight left-hander at the loop. Lucky Kira looking to try and take a wider entry going into the corner to try and cut back on the exit and maybe give them a bit more momentum as they head up towards Aintree. As for Callum Jenkins and the lead of Group GTA, well, he's still having to try and work overtime to try and keep Joshua Jackson behind, who's been an ever-present danger since the very beginning of the race. The two of them have never been separated by a great deal, but this time heading in towards the braking area for Village Corner, Josh Jackson is just too far away. He closes up, though, and as they head up towards the loop, he's already had a nibble here once and briefly took the lead of the group, and he's done it again. Again, the door was left open by Callum Jenkins, who's trying to fight back on the exit of the corner. There's Graham Tilley's stricken Nissan, which is not in the safest of places. That's just down at Club Corner where he has come to grief with some sort of mechanical woe. The race still continues. Lucky Kira still applying the pressure to John Dillon. Runs wide there, though, coming out of Copse Corner. Lucky Kira needs to stay within the confines of the circuit. He's pushing as hard as he can, but you've got to stay within the white lines or the curbs. And again, there was a bit of soil just flicked up as he went to the apex at Beckett's Corner. So he might, if he's not careful, and again, there, bouncing all over the curbs, he may well, possibly, if he's not careful, either cause a little bit of damage to the underside or the front splitter on the Ferrari, or if the officials spot him going beyond the curb line, they may hand him a time penalty, and that would be disastrous for his aspirations to try and take the lead of Group GTC. Again, he has another quick look at the inside of John Dillon, who firmly closes the door yet again and is still desperate to try and hang on to second place. Lucky Kira has other ideas, however, in towards the yellow flag zone, so no overtaking here whilst the marshals deal with the stricken Nissan and get Graham Tilley's car out of harm's way. And only once then they've passed the incident of the green flag will Lucky Kira be able to mount another challenge to try and wrestle second place away from John Dillon. John, who was hugely successful when we had the first weekend of racing at Snetterton. He comes into this weekend lying second in the championship standings. For Group GTA, they are still at it. The two Ginettas are still together. Callum Jenkins doing everything he can to try and hang on to the lead of the group. Josh Jackson looks one way, looks the other, spots the yellow flags, and then there's nothing he can do about it, not at least down through the Vale and Club Corner. He'll have to wait until later in the lap. Pink Porsche sitting behind him is Ben Claydon. Ben Claydon has got one of the Group GTH cars behind him, which is James Guess at the wheel of his Ginetta. James, who was a group winner at Snetterton. So those four cars all file their way through Abbey. There is number 82, James Guess, for Feathers Motorsport at the wheel of his GT4 specification Ginetta G55. And he has latched himself onto the tail end of this little quartet of cars and is hounding Ben Claydon, who has got very little racing experience, but did a really good job in the first weekend of racing in all four races at Snetterton. Back towards the fight for second and third overall, but more importantly the lead of Group GTC. John Dillon under increasing pressure from Lucky Kira, flashing his lights, looking to try and squeeze his way through. John Dillon will use all of his experience to make sure that Lucky stays behind. The two of them are still not that far behind the overall race leader, which is John Seal at the wheel of his Lamborghini, of course, following the retirement of Graham Tilley. A little bit of oversteer mid-corner there for John Dillon. You could just see the Ferrari move around underneath him. A little bit of correction put into the steering to try and stop the car over-rotating on him. More flashing of lights from Lucky Kira as he tries anything he can to try and put John Dillon off. He's thrown everything at it, including the kitchen sink, really, so far, Lucky Kira, but there's not been a single chink in the armour as yet for John Dillon. Since he's taken the lead of Group GTC, he's hung on to it despite everything. Back into the yellow flag zone, so still no overtaking down into the Vale. That's one opportunity that is not available to Lucky Kira as yet. And well, I think at this stage he's maybe now just beginning to wonder where he might have the chance. Now there's been a shuffle in the order, because all of a sudden Callum Jenkins has lost 2 places. He's lost the lead of Group GTA, and the Group GTB Porsche of Ben Claydon went through as well. So that's dropped the number 34 car down through the order as we still concentrate on this battle for second and third place. Lucky Kira almost had the inside line, bounces over the curbs as John Dillon just gets the door closed in time. So Lucky Kira is trying everything. As soon as there's a little gap, he's going to want to try and poke his nose up the inside. But John Dillon always has other ideas as we ride on board with the second place car. down the Wellington straight. The speeds build onto the brakes then, and he'll turn his way in towards the left-hander at Brooklands. Lucky Kira has the inside line on him and goes through to take up second position. So Lucky Kira, having grabbed the place, now is going to want to try and pull away as hard as he possibly can. He's certainly been trying hard, Lucky Kira. On a couple of occasions, you could argue he was maybe trying a little bit too hard because he was running wide at some of the corners. So through Copse Corner they'll go. Lucky Kira now having taken up second position. John Dillon there in third place on the road. Lucky Kira picks up the lead of Group GTC as well. So we go back on board with the third place car. Now Lucky Kira, you could see there, he not only grabbed the apex, but he was across the mud on the inside of the corner. If the officials spot that, they will give him a time penalty. He's done it a couple of occasions. You can get away with it once. On the second occasion, you'll get a warning. And if you're spotted doing it on a third occasion, you will end up with a time penalty. The first of which would be a 5-second penalty. And at the moment, Lucky Kira is not 5 seconds up the road from the Ferrari he's just taken the place from. James Guess over the start-finish line. Still busy fighting away as he heads up towards Copse Corner. The car that's behind him is Callum Jenkins. Then it is going to be the number 1 car, which is the championship winning car from last year. So that will be the car that's second in Group GTH at the moment. The number 82 Ginetta that lies ahead, the blue car with its white and day glow, James Guess, will be leading Group GTH for the GT4 homologated cars at this stage. So through Beckett's come the cars that are fighting over second, third and fourth in Group GTH. The Aston Martin joined by Neil Garnham at the wheel of the McLaren 570S that sits directly behind him. Neil's made good progress from the very tail end of the field. James Guess under pressure from another Ginetta, but this is not for anything other than overall position because the number 82 car runs in Group GTH. Round the outside tries the Group GTA car of Callum Jenkins, and is he going to be able to squeeze his way through? I think he might just have enough momentum as they come down in towards the braking area for Vale. Callum Jenkins has the line, has the position. James Guess lets him go, so a position lost overall, but it's still the group lead for James Guess. But if he looks in his mirrors, second in the group is the McLaren that's right behind him now. So past the wing and the Grand Prix pits yet again they will go. James Guess looking to see whether he can work his way back past Callum Jenkins. This is going to be for positions just outside of the top 6 currently. Ben Claydon doing a really good job again at the wheel of his Porsche. We saw so much hard work done by that Group GTB driver pairing, himself and Sam Randon at Snetterton. And well, it looks as though at the moment they're on for a good weekend here. John Seal is on for the best possible weekend because he still continues to lead at this stage. Had a great fight with the Nissan in the early stages of Graham Tilley prior to its problems, but John Dillon here has enough of a gap between himself and the Ferraris that sit behind, so he can just maybe pace the car towards the checkered flag as we go back on board with John Dillon. You can see the red Ferrari of Lucky Kira just up the road. And, well, for the moment, the top 3 for the first time really in this race looking slightly settled. There goes the 4th place car. 5th place is just coming towards us now, which at the moment is Josh Jackson, but under pressure from Ben Claydon. And we're nearly side by side for the lead of Group GTH here. The Ginetta of James Guess under pressure from the McLaren. They go side by side for the lead of the group through Copse Corner. James Guess on the outside line had more momentum and hung on to the place. Great stuff. Now the pair of those are slowing each other up, and it's bringing into the mix as well Neil Garnham at the wheel of his McLaren 570S, but he does not run in Group GTH. His car is running to Group GTB specification, so it's still just a pair fighting over the Group GTH lead at this stage. Onto the hangar straight comes James Guess. The McLaren, the red car with its silver and day-glow flashes sitting behind, is going to be the car that's second in that group at this stage, which is Steve Rushton. You can see the ever-present danger of Neil Garnham and his McLaren that sits behind. Now, Neil, bearing in mind, has come from the back of the grid, 23rd position on the grid, and is now really working his way beautifully up through the order. There goes Ben Claydon. He's still sitting there in 6th position at the moment. He's got Joshua Jackson's Ginetta lying ahead, and this is actually going to be cars in Group GTA heading the Porsche that runs in Group GTB at this stage. As for Ben Claydon, who runs in Group GTB, his group at the moment is being led by the Marcos that we just saw flash through shot there, and that for race 1 of the weekend will be in the hands of Jensen Lund. But for Ben Claydon, who is pretty new to motorsport, Hasn't done a great deal of racing in the past. Is still building on that knowledge. It's been a solid start to the weekend for him again. For the lead of the race, John Seal being chased by Lucky Kira. Then this car here, John Dillon, sitting there in third position. If anything, gap first to second is coming down here. The Lamborghini still leads and leads Group GT3. In second place, it's still Lucky Kira's Ferrari that leads Group GTC, but without question, that red Ferrari is closing in, and John Dillon is not too far away either. So out of Stowe, in towards the braking area for the Vale they go. John Seal, who has been a regular in the GT Cup Championship over the course of the last few seasons. Had a year out, but it's great to see him back again as he dovetails his commitments with other GT Championships in the UK. It's always good to see him out at the wheel of this Lamborghini, and at the moment is just doing enough to keep the two Ferraris behind, but time is running out for them to catch, let alone work their way through and past. So John Seal comes in towards the braking area for Village Corner. Lamborghini from Ferrari. The Marcos Mantis of Jensen Lund is in fourth place, but is a long way adrift of the leading three cars. This is going to be down 4 places down towards the bottom of the top 10, 9th and 10th places, but the number 1 McLaren is second in the group, and the Ginetta that lies just ahead is leading the group, James Guest. So Steve Ruston is still going to be pushing as hard as he possibly can. Yellow BMW heading towards us is Andy Roby, the Gemini Motorsport car of Andy Roby, and he's going to be sitting there in 12th position at the moment. Chris Murphy's Aston Martin ahead of him, and Jan Klingelberg at the wheel of the McLaren sitting behind. Doesn't matter where you look, there is always somebody to scrap with in the GT Cup, even if they're in different groups. And all of a sudden, John Seal, for the lead of the race, has been caught by Lucky Kira. So Lamborghini still leading, but the gap is now down to just a couple of car lengths when they get towards Copse Corner. And, well, is there a problem with the Lamborghini, or maybe is John Seal just struggling a little bit with the handling of the car in the latter stages of this one, through what is Maggots and Beckett's, up towards the second part of Beckett's, and again, yeah, the Lamborghini, I think maybe might be struggling on the tyres that it's got left now, and he is going to be so much slower heading out of Chapel that Lucky Kira is going to be able to pick him off at the wheel of the Ferrari. The Lamborghini fights back in a straight line, but it's too late, I'm afraid. Lucky Kira goes through to take up the lead of the race. John Seal is down into second place. The aero on the Lamborghini slightly better than the Ferrari, so he almost closes up again by the time they head round through Stowe Corner, but finally Lucky Kira is through and is now taken the lead of the race and has managed to put a car between himself and the car that's second in Group GTC, the one he's had all the battles with, that being John Dillon's Ferrari, who is going to be desperate to also unpick that Lamborghini from second place and promote himself up through the order. Up towards Abbey, they will thread their way. John Seal struggling a little bit now with the Lamborghini, already having lost the lead of the race to one Ferrari. There's another one desperate to try and gain the position. Onto the brakes towards Village Corner. At the moment, there's no opportunity for John Dillon there. Can he do anything at the loop, where we've seen a bit of overtaking? He was much later on the brakes in towards the loop. Accelerates his way up towards Aintree Corner, and then they will head and propel themselves down the Wellington Straight. Now this is Ben Claydon looking to try and grab 5th place, and has managed to do so from Josh Jackson. So the Team Hard Porsche that was already second in Group GTB remains second in Group GTB, hasn't gained an overall place in its group, but has now moved up to 5th overall, and Josh Jackson is down into 6th position. Lucky Kira flashing his lights as he works his way past Andrew Gord's Marcus, which chops across the nose of the Ferrari there. Leader flashing his lights to try and forewarn the traffic he wanted to come through. That's cost him a little bit of time. Thankfully, he's got a bit of a gap between himself and John Dillon, but we are hearing that some of that corner cutting that Lucky Kira was doing earlier on in the race has indeed been spotted by the officials, and he's being given a 5-second penalty. Now that at the moment is not enough for him to hang on to the lead of the race, because John Dillon is less than 5 seconds behind. So Lucky Kira's got to press on. He's got to push as hard as he can to try and build a 5-second lead. If he can do that, he would, on corrected times, grab the win, but for the moment he is not doing enough. And there is damage to the back of the Lamborghini as well. It's got a puncture, I think that might have been the problem for John Seal. The left rear looking as though it's carrying a bit of damage, and possibly something just rubbing on the tyre there. So for Lucky Kira, he is going to lead on the road, but at the moment is not in a position that is going to give him the win. There's the damage to John Seal's car. Just having a look at that tyre, there might be a little bit of tyre damage, but the tyre is still inflated at this stage. But John is certainly now feeling that the handling of that car is going away from him. That is absolutely for sure. He will still be in the lead of the group. He's the only car that runs in Group GT3, unfortunately, following the retirement of Graham Tilley's Nissan. Now, John Seal is going to want to keep pushing as hard as he can. There goes number 9. That's a place gain for Alex Stevenson, who's now managed to get himself ahead of Andrew Gord. So that's a place change there for what will be 17th and 18th positions, as our Group GTH leading Ginetta, number 82, James Guess, flicks his way through Beckett's and is now sitting behind Neil Garnham's McLaren by the look of things. So Neil Garnham now is going to be up into 8th position. James Guess will be down into 9th, but will still be leading Group GTH from the McLaren that sits behind him on the road in 10th position, Steve Ruston, who's now coming under pressure from Andy Roby's Group GTB BMW. So still fights on circuit for overall positions, as the race is not that far away from being concluded, the first of 2 sprint races that we've got over the course of the weekend here. Now, this fight that we've got is inter-group, so it's Group GTH McLaren from Group GTB BMW, Steve Ruston from Andy Roby, but it is for the final place inside the top 10, and they are about to very shortly head on to their last lap of the race. Lucky Kira, I think, has now got over the start-finish line and will be now on his final lap of the race. So the lap that they are on and one more thereafter. Here comes Lucky Kira for the final time up towards Stowe Corner. Remember, he's got a 5-second penalty for going beyond the circuit limits earlier on in the race, and he is still not 5 seconds up the road from John Dillon, who is just dealing with David Franklin's Porsche 911 GT3, but it didn't really cost him a great deal of time, John Dillon, so the gap first to second is still only going to be about 2.5 seconds. Here's our Group GTB leader, 4th overall at this stage for Jensen Lund, who's gone really, really well at the wheel of his Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis, and that's one of 2 Marcos Mantis cars that we've got in the field, because of course the sister car is Andrew Gord, who's down towards the bottom of the top 20 at this stage. So that's 4th. Here's 5th Ben Claydon, 6th place right behind him, which is Josh Jackson. There's our Group GTH leader, which is James Guess. He's about to head on to his final lap of the race, but for Lucky Kira, it looks as though it is going to be a win on the road, but by the time you add a 5-second penalty, it looks as though that is going to be enough to drop him down into 2nd position. For James Guess, though, he's only now starting his final lap of the race, and he's got that McLaren of Steve Ruston not too far away. Ruston still fighting with the yellow BMW. Lucky Kira up towards the final couple of corners, sweeps his way through Luffield. All he's got is Woodcut to deal with now. It's going to be a win on the road for Lucky Kira, but the spoils will go the way of John Dillon by the time the time penalty has been applied to the Ferrari. Through comes Lucky Kira. He claims the win on the road, but will drop to 2nd on corrected times, and the win will go the way of the Scott Sport Ferrari 488, car number 61, in the hands of John Dillon, who came through to finish 2nd on the road, but was less than 5 seconds behind Lucky Kira. Ben Claydon looking as though he's heading towards Group GTB victory, and heading towards Group GTA victory is that car there, the number 67, Ginetta, in the hands of Joshua Jackson. They've still got a few corners to go, though. They're just coming up towards Aintree and then on towards the loop. Ben Claydon running in 5th position overall for Team Hard. Running in 6th position for Team Hard is Joshua Jackson, who is closing in on him. And for poor old John Seal, those problems with that damage towards the tail end of his Lamborghini hampering John's efforts. And it looks as though he is ultimately going to come through over the start-finish line and finish in 3rd position ahead of this car here, which is in 4th place, Warren Gilbert. 5th place is Ben Claydon, and completing the top 6 in the Group GTA win goes the way of 67, which is Joshua Jackson. For Group GTH, final corner, James Guest still under pressure from Steve Ruston, who has shaken away the attentions of the yellow BMW, but James Guest had just enough in hand to be able to hang on to the Group GTH win as they head over the start-finish line to take the checkered flag. Great racing all the way through the order, as ever, in the GT Cup Championship, the first of 4 races here at Silverstone this weekend. To confirm the results, said it's a win for John Dillon on corrected times, with Lucky Kira in 2nd place and John Seal in 3rd. Jensen Lund won Group GTB in 4th, ahead of Ben Claydon in 5th. Josh Jackson won Group GTA in 6th place from Callum Jenkins. Neil Garnham was 8th, and James Guess won Group GTH, only just though, from Steve Ruston. In 11th was Andy Roby, ahead of Steve Burt, Jan Klingenberg, Fraser Smart, and Stephen Walton was 15th. Then it was David Franklin, Alex Stevenson, Andrew Gord, Steve Burt, and in 20th position it was Russell Lindsay. Unfortunately, we lost 3 cars: Emmanuel Vinker, Graham Tilley and Craig Wilkins.
Yeah, I had a very good start. I managed to stay behind John in the GT3 car. But Lucky just managed to nip me, I think, into the first or just into Maggots or Beckett's. But then I had a great run out of Beckett's and Maggots, and I managed to get by him. Lucky, like I said, he was just slightly a bit quicker, but I think there's a few track limit situations, and I think I had my head down. I thought I'd stay behind him and just keep plugging away. And I think the last but one lap, I managed to catch him, and I finished, I think, about second and a half behind him. But lo and behold, he had a penalty for track limits, which put me up to P1 overall, which is fantastic. The team did a fantastic job, and I think, start to a good weekend.
It was tough. Obviously, we're playing with the weather this weekend. I mean, the Marcuses are great cars, but in the wet conditions, there's so much power delivery low down in the rev range, it's really tricky. But yeah, we managed to get through. It stayed dry. We thought it was going to rain. The weather radar was showing rain coming. So we had a wet setup on the car, but we had dry tyres. So we were in the middle, but it stayed dry, so we were able to sort of stretch away, and it was a good race. It was very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. Yeah.
I had a bit of a bad start at the beginning. Callum got in front of me. Wasn't my best first lap, to be honest. Then we had a good battle. He defended really well, and then it was just about waiting and trying to find a gap. Managed to make a move, and then just pulled away a little bit, and then looked after the tyres and brought it home for the win. So more than happy.
That was a hell of a race, yeah. I was glad the 25 minutes came to an end pretty quickly because Steve Rush and McLaren was chasing me down. They're so much quicker on the straights with the McLaren power, and we've got 3 long ones here. But no, a really good race, good fun, and great competition out there today.
A 5th win for John Dillon after that brilliant first weekend at Snetterton. Can he make it a 6th? We'll be back with the pit stop race very, very soon. Keep an eye on all the social media channels.